And you've been listening to Mike Vrabel there, but big breaking news out of the NFL. Cowboys fans have been waiting for a decision. His contract was coming up on the 14th. One day before that, Mike McCarthy will not continue as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That is the very latest from our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. This ends a 5 tenure in Dallas, which featured 3 playoff appearances, just 1 postseason win. The Cowboys went on to have a disappointing 7-10 record this past season. McCarthy's worst since his first year in Dallas. Let's bring back in here Logan Ryan. Look, you had some 12-win seasons there, and then you end up on the short end of the stick this time around. Are you surprised for the Dallas Cowboys deciding to move on from Mike McCarthy?
I'm not surprised by this. I know this has been my take that I think they should move on from Mike McCarthy, and I've been disagreed with heavily with some other analysts here at CBS. I just feel like when you have a quarterback of Dak Prescott's level, we can debate that, but he's highly paid. He was up in MVP races. When you have that talented of a quarterback, Dallas has had some talented rosters, great offensive line and defensive line play, but they got old, right? So the rosters age. But when you had this window with Dak Prescott and that roster and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and everything they had going on there, they weren't able to get it done. Yes, they won a bunch of playoff games. Yes, they won a division. Yes, 12 games, or regular season games, I should say. But when they got to the playoffs, completely different team. Not the best team in the playoffs, not prepared in the playoffs. Last year, they had one of the worst playoff performances I've seen as a player. I played the Packers the week after they beat them. As a 7 seed, getting upset at home as a 2 seed is never good in the playoffs. So I felt like McCarthy had his time. He had his run. He did not get it done. I know Cowboys fans have high expectations every single year, and they need to bring a coach in. And I don't know who right now, but they need to bring a coach in to unlock that potential to get the best out of his players, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs. And I think that's why this move was made. He didn't get fired. He just didn't get extended, and he didn't get extended going into the season. So I think all signs are pointing to this.
You mentioned the playoff wins there. The Cowboys have not been past the divisional round since 1995 when they won the Super Bowl. So it has been quite some time, moving on 30 years now. I mean, as you mentioned, look, we don't know where this is going. What do you want to see from Jerry Jones in deciding to hire this next coach? What do you think he's looking for? We know so much of the Cowboys. It goes back to Jerry Jones. What are you hoping, if anything differently, that he does this time around in searching for a new head coach?
Well, we want to see that Jerry Jones has a plan, right? That's the biggest thing, because sometimes when he's dragging these contracts out late, it's like, what was your plan? What was your plan with the Dak Prescott contract? You waited longer, paid him more. What was your plan with the CeeDee Lamb contract? He held out in training camp, then you eventually paid him, which we all know he should have got paid. What is your plan with Michael Parsons? So you didn't extend Mike McCarthy. You didn't bring him back. What is the plan? Do they have a Ben Johnson? Do they have a top coach in the wings that they can bring in? I want to see what the plan is. He must have identified somebody. If not, he would have brought back Mike McCarthy, and it had to be somebody better than Mike McCarthy if you want to let Mike McCarthy go. So does Jerry Jones have a plan here? And what that is what I want to see, because I know the coaching job in Dallas comes with Jerry Jones has roster management issues over your head. And a lot of coaches want control. A lot of coaches want to understand what the roster looks like. Well, those conversations, is he willing to give up some of that management to the coach? And who is his plan at that coach? That's what I want to see. Is there a plan at the end of this one for Jerry Jones?
I think that's what's so frustrating probably from Cowboys fans is some of those things you mentioned. Look, it doesn't necessarily fall on the coach. It is those contract decisions where he's waiting too long and that he's overpaying a lot of these players, or he's playing what the market is, which is more expensive than what it would have been had he taken action a little bit earlier. So how much does it matter? I mean, what difference can a coach make that he brings in if he were to get a Ben Johnson, who, by the way, we know everybody's going after? I mean, what sort of coach is going to make a difference with this Cowboys franchise?
I mean, great coaches make differences right away. Look at Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. Yes, they did not get it done in the playoffs, but he got the best out of a lot of his players for that point. Listen, coaching in football matters more than any other sport, because every time the ball starts from a dead ball stop. That means a coach draws up a play versus another coach, and you have a better plan for your players. You can have better success in the outcome there. So it's going to be somebody there and get the best out of Dak Prescott, somebody there and they got to rejuvenate. This roster got old. I played against Dallas, like I said, when they had great offensive line play and great defensive line play, and they had a young Ezekiel Elliott, and they had a trio of receivers in CD, Gallup, and Amari Cooper, and they had good guys on the defensive side. So I was like, man, this is a talented roster, but they had no plan for the roster. It aged. They didn't make great additions. They only had subtractions. Now they have no running game. So I need to have a coach in to take some of that away from Jerry and figure out the plan going forward. But I think a good X&O coach, somebody that understands what we're doing, you have Dak Prescott, get some more pieces on offense, score points, you could always figure the defensive side out later.
Going into the season, look, this is a Cowboys team, and you mentioned just the talent, the names that are on this roster, and some people said this is a postseason team. It could potentially be a Super Bowl team. If you get the right coach in there, if you have the right plan from Jerry Jones, they went 7-10 this season, and yes, you have the Commanders who are looking phenomenal right now in that division, as well as the Eagles. Can the Cowboys compete next season if you get the right pieces in play in this division?
What are the pieces, right? We got to see what the pieces are. The Eagles have something with Saquon Barkley now that, and a young defense that isn't going anywhere. A.J. Brown's under contract. Devontae Smith's under contract. They got Goddard under contract. Their offensive line is good. And then they have all these great young pieces on defense. So you can't assume that Philly's just going to fall apart next year. They're not going nowhere. And, oh, by the way, this rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, might be the most poised rookie we ever seen. Got the first road victory in the NFL in how many years for a rookie quarterback to do that. So the Commanders, they're going to have money. They're going to bring some players in to build around Jaden Daniels. They're going to get better. So this division is getting better. Now, the New York Giants, I got the helmet behind me. I can't speak on their plan right now. I don't know what that is. So Dallas right now is looking like they're solid third in their division with an aging roster. So, yes, you could bring a coach in, but we got to see what the players, we got to see what these pieces are. A great head coach and a quarterback is half the battle. I like Dak as a quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. Don't hate on that fact. He is a good quarterback. You got to have a good head coach. That's more than half the battle. But your division is looking like some young, hungry teams are only getting better.
Absolutely, Logan Ryan. We appreciate the time. The breaking news here, Mike McCarthy and Dallas Cowboys not coming to an agreement about his contract extension, so he will no longer be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Added up, there are now 6 head coach openings. There were 6 for a second. The Patriots filled that. Tack on the Dallas Cowboys, making it 6 once again out there. We will have more on this coming up on the other side.
And we have a man on the ground there in Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. Garrett Podell is going to join us, our CBS Sports Cowboys reporter, with more on the decision that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys have made to part ways. More breaking news coverage on the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy splitting up today, according to our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. 5 years in Dallas. The middle 3 years were really good. They won 12 games in 3 straight seasons, but only one playoff win. That came a couple of years ago. Did win 2 NFC East championships, but a 7-10 season is the end of the road for Mike McCarthy, whose contract expired, and the Cowboys are not bringing him back. Let's bring in Garrett Podell, who covers the NFL and the Cowboys specifically for us at CBS Sports. Garrett, you spoke with Jerry Jones after the regular season finale. What has transpired here over the last week or so to get to this point?
Chris, thanks for having me on. I would say a lot actually has changed since I last spoke with Jerry Jones in Week 18 after their loss against the Commanders. Because after that game, so when speaking to Mike McCarthy, he said, absolutely, my first preference is to be back as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry said to me all these complimentary things. He said, Mike is one of the best coaches I've been around. He's had these guys competing like they're going to be in the Super Bowl every week, even though they've been eliminated from the playoffs multiple years. And he said, I really expressed my admiration for Mike McCarthy. And I thought this was interesting, specifically when talking about if he was going to let Mike interview with other teams. He said, I want a coach who wants to be here. We let Ezekiel Elliott talk to other teams and be released because he expressed interest in being elsewhere. Mike McCarthy did not. He said, I absolutely want to be with the Cowboys. So for us to now be at this point where Mike is now a coaching free agent, the Cowboys are moving on, that tells me that after Jerry Jones took the time to talk to players, talk to people around the organization and some of the voices he trusts, he decided this wasn't the way forward. And what I come back to is talking to him after their loss in the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers a year ago. That was a game they went down 27-0, lost 48-32 to the 7-seed Packers. Jerry Jones looked like he might have had some perspiration in his eyes, and he said, that is the most painful playoff loss I've had in my 35 years as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. I really think Mike McCarthy was almost a dead man walking the second the Cowboys played the way they did in that postseason defeat against Green Bay that day.
Garrett Podell with us, covering the Cowboys on a daily basis, and big news today, Mike McCarthy out as head coach of the Cowboys. So when the next coach comes in, it'll be the 7th Cowboys head coach since Barry Switzer, the last coach to take them to even an NFC Conference Championship game. So Mike McCarthy not only vacating that position with Dallas, but maybe a head coaching candidate elsewhere, like Chicago, like New Orleans, to name a couple. Let's bring in our Jonathan Jones, who broke this news moments ago. JJ, interesting timing here, because we were about ready to go live to Mike Vrabel and Robert Kraft in New England, and then Jerry Jones drops this bomb. What more can you tell us?
Okay, actually, before we get into Mike McCarthy, because you led like that, Chris, I have to note this. Jerry Jones, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, who at any point over the last week plus could have come to this decision. He could have come to this decision earlier in the morning. He could have come to this decision later in the afternoon. But yesterday, after Mike Vrabel was confirmed as the head coach of the New England Patriots, there was a press release that went out saying that at 12 Eastern, there would be a press conference at Gillette Stadium. And Robert Kraft, who we know wants to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that he would be attending that, obviously talking with the media. And so what happens right around noon Eastern time as Mike Vrabel and Robert Kraft are about to introduce this new era of New England Patriots football? Some big news on the Cowboys drops. America's team. If you want to think that's a coincidence, if you don't believe in rivalries in the NFL, brother, I got a bridge to sell you. So that's just one interesting note. And now, Chris, we can talk about the actual news.
Yes, and that news today is that the Dallas Cowboys and Mike McCarthy are parting ways after 5 seasons, bookend bad seasons. In the middle there was some nice meat, 3 straight 12-win seasons, but the bottom line was only 1 postseason win, and it came a couple of years ago. Our Jonathan Jones reporting that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys could not agree on a contract and they part ways. So I guess one of the questions here, JJ, is, was this all a Jerry Jones Cowboys decision, or did it have something to do with maybe Mike McCarthy's wishes as well?
I think that it had to do, Chris, with the contract length. I believe this was his 5th season with the Dallas Cowboys, and so he signed a 5-year contract. I've been talking with coaching agents, with other coaches, the last, 2+ weeks about what could happen in Dallas, and several of them said there is no reason for Mike McCarthy to accept anything less than a 4-year contract extension. Sort of the industry standard these days is around 5, sometimes 6. 4 would be on the low end. And we don't know exactly what the Dallas Cowboys were offering. If it was 1, 2, 3, maybe it was 4. Maybe Mike McCarthy didn't have any sort of appetite for something that was less than what he had already signed. But my sources tell me that both sides could not come to terms on contract length. So that at least shows that there was a want to from the Dallas Cowboys. No question about it. One can assume or extrapolate from that Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys wanted fewer years, that Mike McCarthy wanted more years, this is a more long-term security, and they could not find some middle ground.
So last week, the report was the Bears wanted to interview McCarthy, and the Cowboys and Jerry Jones said, no, you can't do that. Does this free McCarthy up to talk to whoever he wants to now? And which teams, JJ, do you think might want to talk to him about their openings?
Yeah, he is absolutely a free agent. He can talk to whomever he wants. Any team that has an opening right now, and we know, of course, there are now 6 openings. Of course, Dallas makes 6, so there are 5 teams that could have interest in Mike McCarthy. They don't have to request permission from the Dallas Cowboys. We heard that the Bears, of course, did that about a week ago. The Cowboys left them on red, if you will. So the Bears can circle back if they so wish. I know there are some reports out there on the Saints. I understand the link and the ties because Mike McCarthy was the offensive coordinator there for a couple of years before Sean Payton got there. I'm not entirely sure that that's bound to happen, but certainly an interview could take place. And then the rest of them, we certainly will see. Mike McCarthy has been at 2 places with a lot of pressure on him. The Green Bay Packers, of course, and the Dallas Cowboys. And so if you are a team that needs someone who can deal with the pressures of this job, the market, what goes into winning and losing, all of those things, as well as an offensive play caller, that's a job for someone in Chicago. That's a job for someone in New York, perhaps. And so, obviously we will see now that he is a free agent. I can also tell you this. While teams did not know whether Mike McCarthy would or would not become a free agent, there was an assumption. I'm not saying it was 100%. Not saying it was 80%, but more than 50% an assumption that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys would work something out. And now they have not, and so now any team that is truly interested in him can get their plans together.
And so now the Cowboys need to get their plans together. Who might be on the wish list for Jerry Jones and that family there?
All right, so a lot of names that we could go through, right? I mean, one of the first ones that comes to mind, Steve Sarkisian with the University of Texas Longhorns. Another college coach who comes to mind, Bill Belichick with the University of North Carolina. Look, we can just make this whole question about Belichick because that's what you're going to hear, and you're going to hear it over and over and over again. I mean, it is such a Jerry Jones hire, it's not even funny, right? And we know that Bill Belichick still wants the NFL wins record. We also know that he can't get an NFL win in Chapel Hill. And so while there has been flirtation, there's no question about it, while Bill Belichick and his general manager at UNC, Mike Lombardi, have been on the record saying we're not going anywhere, of course, one must say that. I will be very, very interested to see what Jerry Jones may do or say with Bill Belichick. If it gets some legs, that will be absolutely fascinating. You can go down the list of all the coaching candidates, and we could talk about how this offensive play caller could do well for Dak. We could talk about this defensive coordinator who he could bring in an offensive guy and do well for Dak. Or we can talk about the big names and what everyone is going to be talking about for as long as the search goes on.
All right, Bill Belichick, $10 million buyout until June 1st. Then it comes down to $1 million. Jonathan Jones with us here on HQ. We are your place for things like this. Breaking news. When it happens, we've got the people to get you the news and expand upon what might happen down the road, like potentially Jerry Jones going after Bill Belichick. HQ, news highlights, scores from the NFL. It's all right here. And much more on this when we come back. Charles Davis and Irresistible will join us as the Cowboys move on from Mike McCarthy, frees him up, and now frees the Cowboys up to find what would be the 10th head coach in Cowboys history. This just in women's hoops. UCLA remains #1 for the 8th straight week. They're a perfect 16-0 following a win over Purdue this past week. They were supposed to face Northwestern on Sunday, but that game was postponed due to the LA wildfires. Their next game is against Penn State on Wednesday in Westwood. Taking a look at the rest of the top 10, South Carolina right there at #2 with just one loss this season. Notre Dame at #3, and there's USC. How about the women's college basketball in LA? Between UCLA and USC, a combined 32-1 this season.
Traveling breaking news out of the NFL. The Cowboys and Jerry Jones officially parting ways. That has been confirmed by our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. Mike McCarthy just finished his 5th year as the Cowboys head coach. They had just one postseason win in that time. The good is when they had 3 12-win seasons, kind of smacked in the middle there. But this year, the Cowboys winning only a disappointing 7, missing the postseason yet again. So is this good news or bad news for the Dallas Cowboys? Let's bring in 3 of our experts here. We have Lige Douzable, Danny Cannell, Charles Davis joining us. Lige, I'm going to start with you. Watching Cowboys fans watch the postseason right now with the Commanders in it, the Eagles in it, they said, we have never felt so low. But not having Mike McCarthy, because we know so many of these decisions are in Jerry Jones's hands as to what happens with this team. Do you feel any better or any worse?
A lot worse for the Cowboys. This one makes no sense, and I felt like Mike McCarthy has been disrespected. Most coaches, DK and Charles, you can speak to this, going into their last year of their deal, they usually get an extension. No coach wants to coach on the last year of their deal. And Amanda, you alluded to it, right? 3 straight years of 12 wins or more. In that span, only Andy Reid had more wins. Now, again, they didn't get it done in the playoffs, and I get that. But let's not forget, going back before Mike McCarthy with Jason Garrett, weren't you going to the playoffs every other year? So don't forget that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And let's not add to the fact that the Chicago Bears wanted to do an interview with Mike McCarthy, but the Cowboys blocked it. So you're stopping this dude from getting money. Now you guys don't, agree to terms. Now he's a free agent. Where do the Cowboys go from here? Because you're going to have a coach that's willing to coach under Jerry Jones, because his final word is going to be the final word. And I don't know how many alpha coaches are going to want to coach under that, plus the pressure that comes with being a Dallas Cowboys coach. So if you're Cowboys fans right now, if you're the Cowboys brass, this is not a good spot to be in right now.
No, it's a horrible spot to be in right now. You've had pretty good success. I remember having this conversation earlier this season, and we were talking about this, and I said, I think Mike McCarthy's in trouble. And you were like, oh, well, the roster's not good enough to have him be on the hot seat.
It's not good.
And I think I told you, I was like, well, Jerry's not going to fire himself or his son, so somebody is going to take the fall. And I feel like this is one of those typical moves where you have an owner who is high profile, who likes to get hyper involved with things, and he's saying, I have to change something. And I think the last 2 playoff exits probably were this conversation had already been started. You'd already seen kind of the writing on the wall. And then the way the season collapsed and fell apart was just the final nail in the coffin for Mike McCarthy and what might have been just an unwinnable situation for him.
And guys, I think you make great points about what's happening there, but a couple things run through my head on this. Number one, he didn't really fire him because he could have done that weeks ago. There was a discussion about, do you come back? What's it going to look like, and obviously under what terms? One of the things that I know we're all hearing is, part of the discussion is length of this new contract, what would it be? Mike McCarthy must have a pretty decent idea or a great self-confidence that there are jobs out there I can go get. So this is what I want, and if you're not going to give it to me, I'm willing to make a walk myself, even if it's whether it's you doing it or I'm doing it. And that might be part of what we have going on here. Lige, you talked about Chicago blocking him. Now that he's walked, I don't believe Chicago's hired a coach yet, have that. So guess what? He can get involved in that. He can get involved in the Jets. There are a few places that he can go. And I think he feels pretty confident he's got a good shot at least one of them. And the other part that you guys have brought up, and it makes sense, high-profile alpha coaches working under Jerry Jones doesn't seem like the great formula. Bill Parcells went and took that job under Jerry Jones. People are going to take this job, and you know one thing about high-profile alpha coaches, you know what they think? I can fix it and do it anyway. They don't always shy away from stuff because they feel like they can bulldoze their way through things as well. So whether it's Bill Belichick or someone else out there, I don't think people are going to totally shy away from this job because it's Jerry Jones.
Yeah, what do you think about that point, Lige? Because Jonathan Jones mentioned Bill Belichick as well, and a guy that could be really high on Jerry Jones's wish list, but we know he needs control.
But that's the thing, right, with Bill Belichick, and I know he wants to get back into the NFL because he wants to attack the most wins in NFL history, and he has an opportunity to do that if he's able to get this job. But you've literally told North Carolina that you're going to be their coach, right? You're all in. You had, a 400-page synopsis synopsis of what it was going to be like day to day for North Carolina. So would you just up and leave after getting that job? I mean, the Cowboys job doesn't become available that often, so it makes a lot of sense. I know JJ said Steve Sarkisian makes a lot of sense as well, the coach at Texas, and I think that would actually be a good hire. It kind of would remind me of coaches that Jerry hires, right? Guys that are up and coming, but they know that Jerry is still going to have the final say on everything. So it'll be interesting because Mike Vrabel probably would have been an interesting name as well, but he just got introduced as the New England Patriots coach. So this is why I think this is confusing when it comes to Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, because it's like, where do you go from here?
The plan better be in place because these spots are going to start to fill. The hottest name on the market's already off the list, as you mentioned. I do think it's interesting because I agree with that. Bill Belichick has made it clear even last week saying, I am not going anywhere. I came to North Carolina, but the Dallas Cowboys job only comes around every so often. It is the star. And Jerry Jones also, yes, he's very persuasive, but so is he able to afford the hottest coaches in the name. And he can write a check that might persuade him to come take the job in Dallas. And the way that Bill Belichick's contract was structured with North Carolina was such that in 2 years it's an easy out, but even now it's not that expensive to write the check for a buyout for Bill Belichick at North Carolina.
Yeah, Charles, it's $10 million if it's before June 1st.
Yeah, it's $10 million. Here's a check, North Carolina. And if we've looked at it, you guys look at this closer than I do, but I'm pretty confident on this. The staff that Bill Belichick's already hired at North Carolina very easily transitions to the NFL in Dallas. It's not like he's hired a quote-unquote college staff. Right? So a lot of those guys can go with him anyway. This isn't one of those ones where he would be abandoning people. And let's be honest about it. People give their word. People say they're going to be places. We expect to do these things. Things change. We know that. Manny Diaz took the Temple job and was gone to Miami in less than a month. All right? So if Manny Diaz is going to move from Temple to Miami, Bill Belichick can move from North Carolina to Dallas if he so chooses. I don't worry about the so-called word and staying. Circumstances change, people change, things move. We'll see how it goes. All I'm going to say is, when it comes down to it, no matter what we've seen in the past, the Dallas Cowboys job is one of those almost irresistible jobs that if you have thoughts about maybe not doing it, you tend to talk yourself into doing it. Because if you're the one that breaks through in Dallas, you become legendary. And most of these people who take these jobs believe that they can get it done.
So let me ask you this, Charles. You mentioned just how coveted this job is when it does come around every so often. Names. I have two questions for you because we've got names out there. We've got guys like Ben Johnson. You mentioned Sark there at Texas. We've talked about the Bill Belichick. Cliff Kingsbury, perhaps. Jerry Jones likes splashy guys. He's a splashy guy. Who can find the balance between being a coach, working with Jerry Jones? And then my second question for you, Charles, is how fast do the Cowboys need to move?
Well, I think they need to move pretty quick because I think Danny and Legia had made the point. These jobs are going to start to fill. Like the dominoes are falling into place. Remember, Aaron Glenn said, I'm not even going to interview in New England because everyone knew that Vrabel was getting that job. So now we're starting to get a sense of where people are going. So I think they need to move fairly quickly. Bill Belichick, yes, he needs control, but Bill Parcells was a similar guy. He found a way to take that job. They'll find a way to work through it. Sark makes a lot of sense to me, because they need to kickstart the offense, have something going with Dak, the whole deal. Here's the kicker for me, though. How much control will Jerry Jones give this new head coach in terms of staff? Because on the other side of the ball is Mike Zimmer as your D coordinator. All right, Mike is going to run his defense, and he's going to do it without having much of a discussion with you as a head coach. Are you willing to jump into that situation and know that you're good to go there? Those are the types of questions these coaches are going to have to answer, Amanda.
I just heard Danny whisper a name.
I'm just saying, Deion Sanders would love this job. I don't know if Jerry would do it, but Jerry is very loyal to his guys, and Charles just brought up the fact that Mike Zimmer is the defensive coordinator who spent a year with Deion in Colorado as an analyst there. So, and he's got Pat Shurmur as his offensive coordinator currently, so he's got kind of an NFL staff he could have ready to go. And I think Jerry Jones is crazy enough to bring Coach Prime and potentially bring it.
Danny. And with the first pick of the NFL
Why would they even make that trade happen?
Cowboys in a trade up select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado.
Yeah.
I don't know the math on that, but I guess it's out there.
I would say with with Dak Prescott's contract, I don't think that's going to happen.
Trade Dak to Tennessee.
Somewhere.
Oh, you mean Dak's not getting traded? Oh, okay, just checking.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Pushing the pile, you can guarantee, look, we have had an NFL head coaching job filled with Mike Vrabel going to the Patriots, and now yet another opening, perhaps the biggest one out there, Mike McCarthy, no longer with the Dallas Cowboys. Make sure to download and follow.